Welcome to part 19 and 20, and in this combined section we're going to be talking about working with family members and working with the patient as well. So working with family members. Well, the reason why you were called or summoned was not to work with family members, right? It was to work with the patient. Well, that's a prevailing thought. However, it is incorrect. You're there to work with everyone. So the family is important, and so is the patient. Because if the family's unhappy, well, then the patient's going to be unhappy. And if you are making the family upset, then you're going to be making the patient upset. And remember, it's your job to bring calmness and security and stability to the scene. So we want to balance things, though, because the patient does have rights. And your number one goal is to protect the patient and their rights, despite what the family wants in some instances. I've had situations where a family member wanted a patient transported to Emory. However, the patient wanted to go to Newton Medical. Well, where would you take them? Well, the family's adamant. They are screaming, they're like, "You will take my father here." Well, the father is of sound mind. The father has every legal right to make that decision. There is no power of attorney in place. So we had to make that hard decision and transport the patient where they wanted to be transported to. So we have to be concerned about the wishes of the patient, but we also can be an advocate, especially if it's in the best interest of the patient. Now, if at that time transporting the patient to Emory would have been better for the patient, I would have sided with the family and I would have tried to convince the patient into going to Emory Hospital. However, it was not that situation. That situation was a situation in which transport to the local hospital would actually have been more beneficial for the patient because they would have been seen faster and they would have had shorter transport time and they would have had an easier time getting back home. Now, sometimes family don't realize that getting transportation back home from the hospital can be very difficult, especially when you are going over 50 miles away from home versus you could go 5 miles away from home. Be honest with the family. Don't give them any false hopes, but don't make everything doom and gloom either. And be honest with the family about things if you cannot talk about it. Because remember, the patient has privacy rights. And you can't just talk to a family member or someone about that patient's medical condition without that patient's permission. So if you can't talk about it, tell them, "Hey, I'm not allowed to. You'll have to ask the patient directly." Ask the family how you can help them, which is good because sometimes maybe the family needs your help. They need your help understanding what's going on. They might need your help knowing how to get to the hospital or what to do when they get to the hospital or where to go. Now, sometimes this could be the first time that this family has called an ambulance ever, and you're the first contact that they've ever had with 911. Do not say you know how they feel. I said that in the last lecture, and it is very important for you to stay away from that term, okay? Because we do not know how they feel. And when you say that, that kind of de-emphasizes or makes that person feel like you don't care how they feel or how they feel is not important. And it is important, and you want them to feel like they are important and that you do care for them. Allow the patient or the family to grieve. Don't try to stop the grieving process. If there's a death going on, or if this is a serious illness, stopping the grieving process is not going to help things. And it's very important for us to remain professional at all times. Despite how badly we are being treated, you cannot stoop down to the level of someone who is being hostile or being or not being professional themselves. You are the professional. You're expected to act in a specific way, and you should. Getting angry and yelling and screaming back does no good. That only ends up hurting you in the end. So try to not do that. Well, that concludes part 19, and we're going to go ahead and go into part 20, which is working with the patient. So, patient, everybody knows death's going to happen eventually. We all have that fear. So, sometimes, though, if it's something that is sudden, it's going to be different than someone who is prepared for it. If you have a patient that's in hospice, they may not have known for months or years that this day is coming. However, that does not change the fact that they're going to have fear, that they may have anxiety, that they may have anger, they may be depressed, or so on. You'll see a patient who is there at the end, they'll start bargaining with God or whoever and trying to get just another day. The important thing is for us to do is be supportive. Don't make light of the patient's fear or pain because it is real. If the patient's in pain, we should do something to try to help it. If they're fearful, we need to be there, maybe by putting our hand on their shoulder or holding their hand or making them as comfortable as possible. Getting other family members or clergy member or someone that they want to be there that's close. We should do that. When you're caring for a critically ill or injured patient, it's important that you let them know who you are, what your level of training is, and what you're doing to help them. And because they may be confused, and you talking to them and letting them know what's going on could be very helpful to help keeping them calm. And if they know that you're there to help, then they may calm down. So avoid sad or grim comments. Try to stay optimistic. All right, don't lie to them, but you can tell them, hey, we're here, we're doing everything we can. You're in the best of hands. We're taking great care of you. We're going to get you to the best doctors, and so on. So, orient the patient to what's going on. If the patient is entrapped in a vehicle, let them know what the noises are. Let them know why the windows are breaking. Be honest with them. If it's going to hurt whenever you take them out of the vehicle, be honest with them so that they know to expect it. If the patient is initially refusing care because they're upset or scared, don't just walk away and get a refusal sign. Take time and explain to them what's going on and how you can help them and convince them to allow you to help them. And that will allow them to see that there is hope, especially if you tell them, like, hey, I'm here to help you, and if you allow me to, I can help make the pain reduce or get better. I can help you breathe easier, and so on. And sometimes you may have to elicit the help of family members or loved ones, and that's okay if you need to. Sometimes whenever you have a critically ill child, that can pose a very stressful situation for you, the child, and the family. However, you should care for them as you would any adult. So many times we put more emphasis on the life of a child, and a life of a child is very important, but a life of another human is just as important. There is no weights here, and we should not put weights on the equivalency of importance for one person over another. Everyone should be treated equally. So we want to care for them the best way. So that what that means is If I'm wanting to give a child the ultimate best care, then I should be giving every patient of mine the ultimate superior best care of all. And then you would be giving everyone every fighting chance they have for a better life, for survival, and so on. Now, when you have children, sometimes it is easier to ask a family member or like the mother or the father to be there to help you because the child may be calmer. They feel more secure when they're with mom or dad. And having that security there for them is very important because children naturally are more afraid of strangers. Think about what we do in society and what we do with kids. We teach them stranger danger and we teach them to be afraid of strangers. And here you are a stranger. And you're a stranger with instruments that are cold, with needles that are sharp and hurt, and they don't want to be hurt. They don't want to be cold. So having that parent there to help you is very valuable. So dealing with the death of a child, well, this is a difficult situation because children aren't generally supposed to die. And the death of a child can especially hit home, especially for those of us who have small children. You want to help the family in any way you can, but do not give them false hope. False hope can just lead to more hurt and resentment down the road. Okay? If the child's dead, you must acknowledge it. Don't, if it's obviously dead, if there are obvious signs of death there, like lividity and rigor mortis and stuff, there's nothing we can do. And starting care and stuff is only going to prolong the grieving process and could end up endangering other lives that we don't want to endanger. If it's possible, let the parents hold the child. Now, you want to follow your local protocols and local procedures because you may want to wait until the coroner gets there or the deputies get there before you do this. But if you can, try to make arrangements so they can do that, so that they can get on with the grieving process. And don't overload the parents with information. When they ask you something or they request something, be there for them. But don't stand over them explaining everything. Don't continue saying, hey, what funeral home do you want? Where do you want us to call? Do you want us to call your other family members or anything like that? Just continue to be there for them, but allow them the room and the opportunity to ask you for help. Well, this concludes part 20, which is caring for your injured patients. Just remember, when you're caring for your patients, the patient comes first, and however, you need to integrate that need there with the needs of the family as well. Because the needs of the family can be just as important to the patient as the patient's needs are. So you want to balance the two. Just be professional at all times and you will do just fine. All right. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me and I'll help you out. And I hope this was helpful, and we'll be moving into part 21, which is stressful situations.